Hey everybody, it's low carb and keto nutrition specialist Amy Berger bringing you the one and only keto without the crazy. Today's topic is kind of a big one, so this might be a longer video than usual. Before I get into the topic, I want to remind you about the free 10-day no sugar challenge that we're doing with Adapt Your Life Academy. I will put a link to it below. If you are looking to clean up your diet or kind of get some momentum with making some diet and lifestyle changes, and if you are not ready to go full bore keto, or you've tried to go keto in the past and it's just too big a change, it's too drastic for you to do all at once, this 10-day no sugar challenge is perfect for you. It is not a keto challenge, it is a no sugar challenge. So if you want to kind of start moving in the direction of eating better, but you're not ready to give up fruit or potatoes or beans and stuff like that, this is the challenge for you. And did I mention it's free? So July 23rd through August 1st. July 23rd through August 1st. Again, I'll check out the link in the notes for all the details. Okay, on to the topic, because it's a big one and I can't spend any more time talking about anything else. Let's talk about anti-nutrients. This is a huge topic, and it's one that I've had a couple of requests to address, and I've been putting it off because it's kind of a big topic. Okay, let's break the word down. And I'm sure you've heard the word, but the anti-nutrients, against nutrients or against nutrition. What does that mean? Anti-nutrients are compounds that naturally occur in certain foods that interfere with your body's ability to absorb some of the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals in those foods. Mostly minerals, not really vitamins. But so anti-nutrient, again, a compound that occurs naturally. It's an inherent part of a food that interferes with or impairs or reduces your body's ability to absorb some of the nutrients in that food. And every now and then, this topic bubbles up in the keto world. It was huge back in the paleo world, before keto was as big as it is now, and paleo was all the rage. Anti-nutrients was like, you couldn't look anywhere without seeing something on anti-nutrients. And there are several different kinds. I'm gonna talk to you about 3 specific ones, and I will actually link to a blog article that I wrote, and I looked at this recently. I can't believe it was so long ago. It was in 2011, so over 10 years ago. I wrote a guest article for Robb Wolf's website on anti-nutrients. I was still a student. I was in graduate school for nutrition at the time. I hadn't even graduated yet, but I managed to finagle a guest post on Robb Wolf's site. So I will link to that. I think that's like the nutshell version of this video. So if you don't have time to watch however long the rest of this video is going to be, go read that blog post. So the reason anti-nutrients kind of stir up some buzz is because of what I said. There are certain foods that contain these anti-nutrients, and some are higher than others. And so if you are, going out of your way to eat good food and follow what you think is a healthy diet, whether keto or not, this has nothing to do with keto, but you are deliberately including certain foods in your diet because of their nutrient content, what if you are not actually absorbing all those nutrients? What if you are not automatically getting what you think you're getting when you eat those foods? And that's part of the issue. The larger aspect of why anti-nutrients are such a buzz sometimes is because they can cause health problems. They can mess you up, to use the technical scientific term. They can mess you up. However, there is a lot of, in my opinion, unfounded, unwarranted fear-mongering and sensationalism about anti-nutrients. Oh, what? Somebody's blowing some nutritional thing way out of proportion and causing terror among the masses. I'm shocked. You know what I say? This is my surprised face. I'm so surprised that there's something in nutrition that's being blown out of proportion and is causing terror among people. No, because unfortunately that happens like every day. Here's the deal with anti-nutrients. Let me, where do I start? I'll talk about the three main ones that I said I was going to walk you through, kind of three of them, and then bring it back to some general concepts. One of the biggest anti-nutrients is something called phytic acid or phytate, Phytate, phytate or phytic acid, Phytic, phytic acid. And this is a storage form of phosphorus that occurs mainly in grains and nuts and seeds. And it may be and beans, I think beans as well have a lot of phytic acid. And so this storage form of phosphorus binds to things like calcium, magnesium, iron, and I'm trying to remember what else. Something else, with calcium, iron, magnesium, and some other minerals. The phytic acid binds to them, which makes it more difficult for your body to absorb those minerals. And there are certain ways of cooking and preparing some of these foods that does reduce the impact of that phytic acid. So if you have ever heard of soaked or sprouted grains or fermented grains, or when you have beans, like dried black beans, dried kidney beans, and you soak them overnight, you rinse the water, you soak them again, supposedly that helps to reduce some of the phytic acid, and also cooking them really, really well. So there's certain ways, again, you've seen like sprouted grain bread, fermented bread, soaked grains, that supposedly reduces the impact of some of this phytic acid. So that's one of them. And another one is goitrogens. Goitrogens interfere with iodine absorption. And I'm pointing here because iodine is very critical for your thyroid gland, which is in your neck in front of your windpipe. So goitrogens are found mostly in cruciferous vegetables, like in the brassica family. So things like kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, anything from that vegetable family, that cruciferous family. And just like the phytic acid, they're called goitrogens because when they interfere with iodine uptake in your body and by the thyroid gland, you could get a goiter. Goiter is an enlarged thyroid gland, which gives you this big growth on your neck. If you are not squeamish, you can search online for images of goiter. You will see some really extreme stuff. There's a part of the U.S. called the goiter belt where the soil is like notoriously low in iodine. So all of the vegetables grown there are lower in iodine, and it's the goiter belt, so there was a lot of goiter. In fact, goiter and iodine deficiency was so common in the U.S. in years past. That is why they iodize salt now. That's why there's iodized salt. It was a public health measure to prevent this goiter. Anyway, getting too far afield. What a shock. So the goitrogen, just like the phytic acid, there's ways to neutralize it through, different methods of cooking and preparing. With the goitrogens, supposedly, when you cook these foods well, it dramatically reduces the impact of these goitrogens, which is fine with me because raw broccoli, have fun chewing. Raw Brussels sprouts, like my jaw hurts just thinking about chewing on a raw Brussels sprout. Now some people, like, you might see a crudité platter where there's raw broccoli and raw Brussels sprouts, or raw cauliflower with the ranch dip. That's fine. We'll talk about why in a minute. So that's the phytic acid and the goitrogens. The third one is a biggie that most of you have probably heard of, and that is oxalate. Oxalate. That is similar to the phytic acid in that it is a compound that binds to some of these minerals, the calcium, the magnesium, the iron, and makes it harder for your body to absorb them. In addition to that, the oxalates they are crystals, and they can lodge in various tissues in your body and wreak havoc. If you look up oxalate toxicity, you will find any number of widely varying health issues that have at one time or another been associated with this oxalate overdose, oxalate buildup in the tissue. It can be very painful. But did you know, those of you that enjoy eating rhubarb, if you buy rhubarb at the store, it's the stalks, right? It's that red, I think there's green rhubarb too, but it's that red stalk. It kind of looks like a big celery stalk. You only ever eat the stalks. You never see rhubarb leaves. But if you grow rhubarb at home, it has leaves. You know what? You know why you never see rhubarb leaves at the store? Because they are so high in oxalate that they are like acutely poisonous to humans. If you were to just eat a bunch of oxalate leaves, bad juju. Spinach is high in oxalate. I think blueberries, almonds, and cocoa beans, cocoa powder. And the reason I'm saying that is because I said this has nothing to do with keto. Like phytic acid, okay, you're not really eating grains and beans anyway if you're on keto. If you do eat grain, it's a very small amount. Maybe you eat like those low carb, high fiber wraps or tortillas or crisp breads. So you're eating very little grain compared to the average person. You're probably eating little to no beans. Maybe you're having some nuts and seeds, but not in huge quantities where this would be an issue. But there are keto foods, there are foods that are very low in carbohydrate that you might be eating on a regular basis that do have these things, just like the broccoli, Brussels sprouts, all kale, all those good, low carbohydrate, non-starchy vegetables. And again, with this oxalate, spinach, super high in oxalate, blueberries, almonds, those are the big ones that I remember off the top of my head. And Swiss chard, loaded with oxalate as well. So what is the deal? How worried do we need to be about any of this, if at all? Like, should we be losing sleep over this? Some people would say yes. I'm going to say no, but there's always exceptions. The main thing I want to convey to you is that with these anti-nutrients, I think the poison is in the dose, as they say, right? That's a very famous saying. Water is toxic if you drink enough of it. You could die from hyponatremia, right? From diluting your blood sodium so much that you could actually die. This is how every year there's like a couple of deaths in fraternity hazing rituals where they make these guys drink like 2 gallons of water. Yeah, don't do that. Oxygen is toxic if you get too much of it. Like too much oxygen can kill you. So anything will kill you if you take it in a lethal amount. So I think what these anti-nutrients are the best argument for eating a varied diet, for not having a mono diet, like every day all I eat is broccoli. And I think that where we tend to see problems with these, because we do, hear me on this, I'm not dismissing or ignoring the fact that these anti-nutrients can and do cause problems. But I think they can and do cause problems in people who are eating massive quantities of these foods on a regular, consistent basis. For example, I actually read 1 or 2 published papers of people that induced hypothyroidism. They induced like goiter basically, because they were having raw kale smoothies like every day and spinach smoothies. Well, no, spinach is oxalate. So, but the kale is the Goitrogens. If way back in the day, in evolution, you would not have been able to eat that much of that food concentrated down that much, right? It's only because we have these blenders and these super high-tech pulverizer machines, right, that you could drink the equivalent of a pound of kale in about 60 seconds, right? And if you're doing that every day, and you're doing it because you think it's healthy, right? Oh, my green smoothie, and it's so healthy, and it can be healthy when used appropriately. Maybe if you take a large amount of it every day, not so much. Same thing with the grains and stuff. I think I had a client once, one client over all these years, who I suspected might have an oxalate issue when she had a lot of health stuff going on that it was very hard to ascertain what was going on based on her paperwork and in talking to her. I'm like, what's going on here? And we were like walking through her diet, okay, what do you eat? Tell me more. What else do you eat? What else do you drink? What else? Like, what am I missing here? Finally, it came out. She was drinking like a quart of almond milk a day, which for some people, maybe that's fine. Almonds and almond milk is going to be very high in oxalate. So if she was drinking that large a quantity of it every day, of course that can add up. Of course that can be a problem. So again, I think these various anti-nutrients, because they exist to different amounts in different foods, it's a great argument to eat a varied diet, to not eat the same exact thing every single day for years at a time. And I think when we look at healthy people from around the world in the past, different tribes and stuff, that's what they did. They ate with the seasons. There were different things available at different times of the year, unless, if you lived at the extreme Arctic or something, or maybe around the equator, there's going to be certain things available all the time and not available ever. But for the most part, they ate different things at different times of the year or in different amounts. It wasn't really possible to eat a ton of one thing at a time for a very extended period of time. So I think where we tend to see these health issues that happen from, let's say, mineral deficiencies because of phytic acid, that happens not uncommonly in the third world, like in the developing or underdeveloped world, where they can't afford a more varied diet, they can't afford certain foods. They might even be eating what they get from government aid or from international food assistance. And what is that usually? Grains and beans. If they don't have a lot of meat in their diet, if they're eating the same type of grain a lot all the time, or the same type of bean, they're going to be ingesting a lot of whatever that particular anti-nutrient is. That could potentially result in some kind of deficiency or some, just insufficiency or imbalance. And we would also see this in vegans, possibly in vegetarians, but in vegans as well. If you are, especially if somebody is following a vegan diet and they're like limiting their food even beyond no animal products or byproducts, they might, again, be having that raw kale smoothie every single day, having a ginormous spinach salad for lunch every single day, having, blueberries or whatever the thing is. You can induce problems that way. And so let me think. This brings up an important, or interesting rather, thing about the carnivore diet, because you might have noticed, or maybe you haven't noticed until right now, all of the foods that I mentioned that have these anti-nutrients are from the plant world, right? What did I say? I said the broccoli, the Brussels sprouts, the grains, the beans, the nuts, the seeds, the blueberries, the Swiss chard. I didn't say beef, did I? You didn't hear me say pork. You didn't hear me say, fish or bison or alligator meat, whatever. Animal foods don't have these anti-nutrients, and here is why. And I meant to say this at the beginning. What is the point of these anti-nutrients? Like, why would a plant have this, semi-toxic stuff in it? When you think about predators and prey, animals, if an animal is being attacked, like by some other animal or by a human because we want to eat it for dinner, animals can run away. They can run away from a predator, or some of them have claws that they can fight. They have teeth, they have horns. They can fight, they can defend themselves physically against a predator. A plant does not have that ability. Now, some plants, of course, have thorns. Some plants, the leaves themselves are really spiky. Like, plants have some dangerous stuff, but they can't run away. They can't, move immediately, quickly, and fight you off if you want to pick them and eat them. They are literally rooted in place, right? So they evolved these chemical defense mechanisms. They have these chemical defenses where it doesn't kill you immediately, right? It's not like you're going to eat a handful of blueberries and have oxalate poisoning. But if you do it over a long period of time, and I think just with the dose makes the poison kind of a thing, these things are much more toxic probably to insects or to other animals than they are to humans, right? Because just maybe the sensitivity, or like, and I'm sure certain insects and animals have evolved to not find these things toxic, whatever. But I just think we only really run into problems with these anti-nutrients when we eat these foods in large quantities over extended periods of time. Now, if you enjoy the carnivore diet and you want to, and you don't ever, then you don't have to worry about this at all. It's a non-issue for you because you're not eating any of these foods, right? There are some animal foods like that puffer fish that's like toxic unless you cook it really correctly. There's very rare instances of animal foods that can be poisonous to humans, but you could make this a non-issue for yourself by just not eating any of those foods. But I also think this is a non-issue if you don't overdo any of these. And I can't give you an exact amount. Like, you can have this many blueberries this many days of the week before you have an oxalate problem. Or you can have this much Swiss chard this many times a month. Swiss chard is gross, so I don't know why anyone's eating it. Anyway, almost every, I mean, I've had it, but like almost every Swiss chard recipe I've ever seen calls for golden raisins to be added, because chard is so bitter, you have to take the edge off with something sweet. And I don't know if this has to do with the oxalates or not, but when you eat chard, it's like sandy, and it's not dirt from the ground. I've worked on farms where we grew Swiss chard. Chard is a beautiful plant. Rainbow chard, the most gorgeous, vibrant yellow stalks and pink and white. I mean, it's a beautiful plant. It just tastes really gross. But even when you wash it really, really well, there's no sand, there's no dirt. The leaves themselves, and I think it's those oxalate crystals, you can like feel it kind of grinding against your teeth. I think the same is true of spinach. You can kind of feel it's a little like gritty, like a little, anyway. Yeah, I cannot quantify it for you. I can't give you an exact amount, like above this threshold. I think some people are probably more sensitive than others. But again, I really can't stress this enough. The main thing, I don't want anyone to be afraid, like, oh my God, I like almonds. I have some almonds every now and then. I have a handful. That's not going to be a problem. It becomes a problem when we just eat far too much of this far too often. And especially like the goitrogens even tend to be a bigger problem in areas where there's iodine deficiency already. So if you're in a place where your iodine intake is already kind of low and you're going to eat these high goitrogen foods, now we're going to have a problem. If you are iodine sufficient, iodine replete, that's probably not as big a problem. Same thing with the phytic acid. Like the example I gave was the underdeveloped world or the third world, where they may be getting food aid, international aid, and so they're eating a lot of beans, a lot of grains, in the absence of more nutrient dense foods like red meat, like shellfish, like pork, like antelope, whatever. I guess antelope would be red meat, right? That kind of stuff. So I think even if you're eating some foods that contain phytic acid, if you're eating enough other very nutrient dense foods that don't contain that, it's not going to be as big a problem. I did read a study once, and this study is widely cited in the nutrition world sometimes, where I think people ate, I think oysters. I might be quoting it wrong. It's something like some kind of shellfish. They ate the oysters, and then they measured people's zinc levels afterward, like, okay, how much zinc are we absorbing from this? And then they ingested the oysters or whatever shellfish along with, I think, corn tortillas or some kind of corn, which is going to have some phytic acid in or some other anti-nutrient. And the zinc absorption was reduced. So I don't want to, tell lies here. It may be that when you do combine a high anti-nutrient food, even with a nutrient-dense food, it is going to decrease the amount you absorb. You're not going to absorb none. It's not going to completely, nullify or what's the word I'm looking for? Void, nullify, neutralize. It's not gonna complete. That's how you know I'm a writer. When I know there's the particular word I want, it's gonna irk me to use some other word. So even those high anti-nutrient foods are not going to completely neutralize the nutrients in the nutrient-dense food, but you might absorb less. So, what else can I say? I don't want, as you know, if you follow me on social media or even just here on my YouTube channel, there is so much fear-mongering and alarmism about food in general, and especially in the keto world, right? I don't want to contribute to more of that. I want to help you relax about food. I want you to be more confident in what you're eating. Do anti-nutrients exist? Yes. Can they be a problem for some people? Yes. Should we be aware of them? Is it a thing? Yes. Is it something we need to be terrified of? No. Is it a reason to completely eliminate certain foods from your diet? No. Unless we're talking about something obviously toxic like rhubarb leaves. Again, if you want to do the carnivore diet, you don't ever want to eat plants anyway. Most people don't do that because of the anti-nutrients. They do it because of some really severe digestive issues. Some people do it for mental health. You don't have to ever eat any food that is high in an anti-nutrient, be it phytate, be it oxalate, be it goitrogens, be it something else. You do not, lectins, don't even get me started on lectins. You don't have to eat almonds or blueberries or cocoa or spinach or kale, but if you want to, I think it's totally fine, as long as you are not eating pounds and pounds of the stuff every day. So just like a lot of other things, even gluconeogenesis, I've done talks about this, like, is that a biochemical process that exists in your body? Yes. Is it something you need to be scared of or worried about on a daily basis when you're eating food? No. So I hope that is helpful. I hope that clears things up. I welcome questions. If you want to put questions in the comments, I'll try to keep up. I don't always keep up with the comments as much as I'd like. I pop in every now and then. So yeah, let me just pause here to make sure there's nothing I forgot. No, I just, just keep in mind, as always, there's a lot of sensationalism in the keto world. We have it, not me, but we as a collective have a tendency to take something that has a kernel of truth, that has a nugget, and blow it completely out of proportion and like extrapolate things from it that should not be extrapolated. So, if you like those foods that have anti-nutrients, eat them. Just be careful to eat plenty of other stuff over the course of a week or month too. And yeah, and I think even in the short term, I don't think you would run into problems eating a lot of these things in the short term. Like, let's say you're a gardener and you have spinach in your garden. You're growing the most gorgeous spinach and you've got a bunch of it. All right, it's probably only going to be growing for a couple weeks. Eat spinach to your heart's content, because then you're probably not going to have it for a while. Same thing with blueberries. I know a lot of people who don't normally eat fruit, but in the summertime, when it's, or depending on where you live, when it's actually in season and it tastes really, really good, they will go a little wild enjoying blueberries every day, enjoying strawberries every day. That's fine, because they're not going to do it for 8 months out of the year eating a pound of this stuff every day. So I think even in the short term, eating large amounts of this isn't going to be a problem. I really think it happens when large amounts of these foods are eaten over extended periods of time. So something we would see in somebody on a long-term vegan diet, something we would see in again, like the underdeveloped world, where their diet may be not by their own choice, but by finances or available resources, limited to very particular foods. So for those of us fortunate to not be in those situations, I really think this is a non-issue. But I don't want to dismiss the people that have had problems with this, but I don't know of too many people that have had problems from these that did not have a history of veganism or vegetarianism or just disordered eating in some way, like a mono diet, very limited dieting. I just don't see these things becoming massive problems in most people. But again, never say never. Anything could happen to anyone. So yeah, if you have had a problem, I'm not dismissing your lived experience, but I don't want people to be afraid of something that I don't think they need to be afraid of. Thank you for watching. Do check out the link to that 10-day no sugar challenge from Adapt Your Life Academy. I will see you next time. If you're not subscribed already, why not? It's free to subscribe. All right, see you next time.